Welcome back to Podcast That Book. I gotta say, I love how many of you send in your favorite reads, and this one's been on my list forever.
Oh, yeah.
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie.
Oh, classic for a reason. It's amazing how relevant Carnegie's insights still are, even though the book was written way back when.
Okay, so get that. One of the first things that hit me was how Carnegie straight up says, worry isn't just some feeling you shrug off.
Right.
It can actually mess you up physically.
It's true.
He even links it to wild stuff like arthritis, mental health issues, and even diabetes.
And the way he presents the research on the mind-body connection is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
Like, think about how much stress we deal with in our daily lives, especially when it comes to things like our jobs or relationships. Those aren't just emotional issues. They can really take a toll on our bodies over time.
And speaking of jobs, Carnegie dives into how high-pressure careers are practically worry factories.
Okay.
It drops this stat that business execs are way more likely to have heart problems, ulcers, you name it.
Makes sense.
Compared to folks with less intense gigs.
Right.
It makes you think, right?
Right. And it makes sense when you consider the constant demands, the long hours, the pressure to make decisions that impact a lot of people. All of that stress adds up, and it can manifest in some pretty serious health issues.
It's true.
I think it's a good reminder for all of us to take a step back and evaluate our own work-life balance.
So if you're listening and you're in one of those high-stress jobs, I'm curious, what are some things you do to manage that worry and protect your health? Hit us up on social media. We'd love to hear your strategies.
And while we're on the topic of managing worry, one of Carnegie's biggest points is that a lot of it stems from feeling confused or overwhelmed.
Right.
He actually cites this 3-step process from Dean Herbert E. Hawks that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's like a worry-busting formula. First, get all the facts about what's stressing you out. Don't let your imagination run wild with worst-case scenarios.
Yeah.
Then analyze those facts logically. Finally make a decision about what you're going to do about it, and then get to it.
And what's so powerful about that process is that it takes you from the state of passive worrying to active problem solving.
I like that.
It puts you back in the driver's seat.
Okay.
And Carnegie actually illustrated this with an incredible story about Galen Litchfield.
Oh, this is a good one. Set the scene for us.
Picture this 1942 Shanghai during the Japanese occupation.
Oh, wow.
Litchfield, an American businessman, gets word that he's going to be interrogated. Possibly tortured by the secret police the next morning.
That's terrifying.
I mean, talk about a high-stakes situation.
What does he do?
Well, he doesn't panic.
Okay.
He uses that 3-step process we were just talking about.
Fine.
He sits down and writes out exactly what he's afraid of, analyzes his limited options, and then makes a decision.
And his choice.
He decides to act as if nothing is wrong.
Which is wild, right?
I know.
But it worked.
It did.
He walks into that interrogation with an air of confidence, and the Japanese officials who are expecting fear and resistance are completely thrown off.
Totally.
They end up releasing him. The story is a testament to the power of staying calm and rational, even in the face of extreme stress.
It really is.
It's a great example of how a clear process can help us regain control when we feel like worry is about to take over.
Absolutely.
And speaking of taking control, another powerful strategy Carnegie offers is the idea of applying a stop-loss order to our worries.
Oh, okay.
It's a concept he borrows from the world of finance.
Nice.
And it basically means...
Think of it like setting a budget for your worry.
Right.
You know, like how investors set a limit on how much they're willing to lose on a particular stock?
Right.
You allocate a specific amount of time.
Like how long?
Maybe 15 minutes to really dive into the problem, try to understand it, brainstorm solutions.
Okay.
But once that time's up, you consciously redirect your focus to something productive.
Gotcha.
You've sold off that worry, at least for now.
This really resonated with me because I tend to dwell on things way too long.
Oh, yeah.
But this idea of setting a time limit is so practical. And it reminds me of the other example Carnegie uses.
Yeah.
Leo Tolstoy, the famous Russian novelist.
Oh, yeah.
He had a notoriously unhappy marriage for like 50 years.
Yeah. If only Tolstoy had applied a stop-loss order to his worries about his relationship,
right,
maybe he could have found some peace and moved on to something more fulfilling.
That's a good point.
It's a reminder that we do have more agency than we sometimes realize.
I like that.
We can choose where we invest our energy, and sometimes that means letting go of what's dragging us down.
And that's a perfect segue to a brighter side of the book.
Okay.
Carnegie doesn't just focus on what's wrong.
Right.
He also offers ways to cultivate more happiness.
Uh-huh.
One of his big points is that we actually have more control over our happiness than we might think.
I agree.
And he brings up this idea from William James,
who basically said that action and emotion are intertwined.
Okay.
So if you want to feel happier,
Yeah.
you need to act happier.
So like what?
Smile more often, whistle a tune,
Okay.
cultivate positive thoughts.
Fake it till you make it.
It might sound simple, but our behavior really can influence our mood.
It's like faking it till you make it, but for happiness. But then Carnegie throws in this curveball that I found kind of mind-blowing.
What's that?
Don't expect gratitude when you do nice things for people.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. How often have you felt resentful or disappointed when someone didn't thank you for something you did for them?
Oh, all the time.
Carnegie uses examples like Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor,
right,
who did all sorts of good deeds, but often got zero appreciation.
Yeah, and there's the story of Samuel Leibowitz, a lawyer who saved 78 people from execution,
Wow.
but received hardly any thank yous.
So the point is,
true generosity is about finding joy in the act of giving itself.
Right.
Not in the expectation of a reward.
So for you out there listening,
Yeah.
think about a time when you did something nice for someone and didn't get the recognition you thought you deserved. How did that make you feel?
It's a good question.
Maybe it's time to reframe those experiences and focus on the good feeling that came from the act of giving itself.
And that leads us to another one of Carnegie's core messages.
Which is?
Don't compare yourself to others.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It's a surefire way to sabotage your happiness.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a pointless exercise because we're all so unique.
Sure.
He even uses this mind-blowing statistic.
Oh, yeah. He says that even if you have the same parents, the odds of another you being born are astronomically small.
It's crazy.
It's a powerful reminder to embrace our individuality and stop trying to measure up to some impossible standard.
It's about finding contentment in who we are with all our quirks and imperfections, because those are what make us interesting.
I like that.
Comparing ourselves to others just leads to self-doubt and a feeling of never being good enough.
Absolutely.
So true.
So true.
And on that note of embracing our individuality, Carnegie even has a thought-provoking take on criticism.
Oh, really?
He suggests that it's often rooted in envy.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. People tend to criticize those they perceive as more successful or accomplished.
It's like that saying, the only people who don't have haters are those who aren't doing anything.
Exactly.
Carnegie uses a great example. William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army.
Oh, yeah.
This guy was doing incredible work helping countless people,
Right.
but he was constantly being attacked in letters and articles.
But instead of letting those criticisms bring him down,
Yeah.
Booth saw them as a testament to the impact he was having.
That's a good point.
It's a powerful shift in perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's like those criticisms were actually backhanded compliments.
Right.
It makes you realize that maybe you are doing something right if people are taking the time to try to tear you down.
Exactly.
So for those of you listening who might be struggling with feeling criticized,
Yeah.
how can you reframe those experiences?
That's a good question.
Can you see those criticisms as a sign that you're actually on the right track?
It's all about choosing how you react right.
Yeah.
And speaking of choices, another big theme in the book is finding work that you actually enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
Carnegie argues that being successful in your job often boils down to having a good time while you're doing it.
Which makes so much sense, but it's something so many of us forget.
I know.
We get caught up in the grind, the pressure to climb the ladder,
Right.
and we lose sight of whether we actually enjoy the work itself.
Right.
Carnegie even quotes Thomas Edison,
Oh, wow.
the guy who practically invented the light bulb, saying, "I never did a day's work in my life. It was all fun."
Now, whether or not that's entirely realistic for most of us,
True.
it highlights the importance of aligning our work with our passions.
For sure. And speaking of aligning work with passion, he tells a story about Phil Johnson,
Okay.
whose dad owned a laundromat.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about this guy.
This is a good one. I remember reading about this guy. So the father really wanted Phil to take over the family business.
Right.
But Phil was just not into it at all.
He wasn't.
He was way more interested in machines and how things worked.
Yeah.
So he preferred working as a mechanic.
Oh, so he was hands-on.
And that passion for mechanics eventually led him to become the president of Boeing.
Wow, what a story.
It's a great example of how following our interests, even if they don't seem practical or prestigious at first, can lead to unexpected success.
Yeah, I like that.
It's like that Steve Jobs quote, "You got to find what you love." But what if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, great, but I'm already stuck in a job that I don't exactly love now?
Yeah, good question.
Well, Carnegie has a tip for that, too.
What's that?
Stay organized.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. He makes a point that a messy desk and a backlog of unanswered emails and memos is a recipe for stress and worry.
Makes sense.
It's like that feeling of constantly playing catch-up, never quite getting ahead. He tells a story about a super stressed-out executive in Chicago who went to see a doctor for help.
Oh, wow.
The executive noticed that whenever the doctor was interrupted with a small task or question, he dealt with it immediately instead of putting it off.
Interesting.
So the executive decided to try the same approach in his own work.
And guess what?
That happened.
Within 6 weeks, his anxiety had significantly decreased. Just by tackling those small tasks as they came up.
So it worked.
He was able to avoid that feeling of being overwhelmed and behind.
It's such a simple concept.
Right.
But so powerful. It's like if you can stay on top of those little things, you prevent them from piling up and turning into big sources of stress.
Yeah.
And sometimes the simplest strategies are the most effective.
Absolutely. And on that note of simplicity, Carnegie also has some really practical advice on avoiding burnout and worry.
Oh, like what?
He emphasizes that it's not just about how much you rest, but when you rest.
Yeah, this was an aha moment for me. I used to think I just needed to power through the day and then collapse at night.
Oh, yeah.
But Carnegie argues that regular breaks throughout the day are key to staying energized and focused.
He shares a story about Frederick Taylor, an engineer who studied worker productivity.
Okay.
Taylor found that workers who took regular breaks throughout the day were actually far more productive than those who pushed themselves to the point of exhaustion.
So it's kind of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
We often think we need to work longer and harder to get more done.
Right.
But taking those breaks actually makes us more effective in the long run.
It's like investing in your energy and well-being.
Yeah.
We're not machines.
Right.
We need time to recharge so we can come back to our work with a fresh perspective.
And it makes sense, right? When you're tired and stressed, you're more likely to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Lose focus, and feel frustrated. Taking those breaks allows you to reset, clear your head, and come back feeling more refreshed and ready to tackle those challenges.
And I think it's a great reminder that we need to be kind to ourselves. We're not superheroes. We can't just go without consequences.
That's true.
Taking those breaks, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, can make a world of difference in how we feel and how effectively we work.
So for our listeners out there,
yeah.
How do you build those breaks into your day?
Good question.
What are your go-to strategies for recharging and preventing burnout? Let us know in the comments. It's amazing how much practical wisdom is packed into this book. I feel like we could keep going for hours, but we've covered a lot of ground here, from the surprising physical impacts of worry to those actionable strategies for managing it.
And it's not just about surviving, right? It's about thriving.
Right.
Finding that inner peace and living a more fulfilling life.
Totally. If you could pick just one key takeaway from how to stop worrying and start living.
Yeah.
To apply to your life today, what would it be and why?
For me, it's about embracing that idea of accepting the worst case scenario.
Oh, okay.
Now, that might sound a little scary at first.
Right.
But Carnegie argues that when we confront our fears head on, we can often diffuse their power over us.
It's like staring down that bully on the playground,
Right.
Once you show them you're not afraid, they often back down.
Exactly.
And Carnegie illustrates this with a powerful story about a guy named Earl P. Haney.
Okay.
Who was diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Oh, wow.
Instead of giving into despair, Haney decided to make the most of the time he had left.
So what did he do?
He bought himself a casket.
Whoa.
Then set off an around-the-world trip, checking off all those bucket list items he'd always dreamed of.
And
the amazing thing is that by the time he returned home, he was completely healthy. Now, I'm not saying this is a guaranteed cure-all, but it shows how powerful our mindset can be.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our focus from what we fear to what we can control.
Right.
And sometimes that means accepting that things might not go our way and finding a way to make the best of it.
It's about finding that inner resilience to navigate whatever challenges life throws at us. And that's a skill that's valuable in any situation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a serious illness, a job loss, or even just those everyday stresses that we all face.
It's about equipping ourselves with the tools and the perspective To not just survive, but to thrive even when things get tough.
Well, that was quite a deep dive into Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. What a journey. I have to say, I'm feeling a lot more empowered to tackle my own worries now.
Me too. It's a great reminder that worry is a natural part of life, but we don't have to let it control us.
I agree.
There are things we can do.
Yeah.
Practical things to find peace and happiness.
Huge thanks to you for helping break down these powerful ideas with us. It's been an inspiring conversation.
My pleasure. Carnegie's work is so timeless and relevant.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners will be encouraged to explore it further.
For those who want to learn more, we'll have a link to the book in our show notes. And be sure to check out our website for more deep dives into all sorts of fascinating topics.
And as always, we love hearing from you. What resonated with you the most from today's episode? What are some of your favorite strategies for managing worry and stress? Share your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah.
We're always listening.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge.